And that's what I tell my kids. It's like, look, I don't want you to do what I did.
Right.
But I want you to analyze it, take the good parts, but make the bad ones better, which is all of the genetic code, really.
I tell my kids that, we're going to take the good and then some of the bad. Dad might be picked up by social services.
In handcuffs.
We grew up in a different time.
Yeah. Welcome to Under the Knife, the podcast where we cut into topics such as politics, life advice, and medicine, and we do this with the precision of a licensed orthopedic surgeon. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Green, an orthopedic surgeon and elected public official. Patrick, thanks for being here, man.
Glad to
do
do it.
It's been a long time,
It has been a while, brother.
Let's see, I'm 48, you're 45,
45,
so
yeah.
we probably hung out in the kids of veterinarians.
Absolutely. Small world in that way.
Yep.
I think even back to Dad's being friends in college.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Long way back.
Yeah.
And so you're in St. Francisville now. You're in the mortgage business, right?
In St. Francisville in the mortgage business, yeah.
Take us through the last 7-8 years of the mortgage business. Wow.
It's an awesome question because it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
If you want to take 7 years back, I guess it's 23, you go back to 16, we were kind of in a market that had come out of the great recession of 08, 09, and the market was really starting to pick up steam in 16 and 17. 18 was a very interesting time because it kind of slowed down. There was a lot of compression and constriction, and it looked like we were headed for higher interest rates. And it kind of, the mood of the country was kind of that it was a seller's market, and that sellers were able to pretty much dictate. And then in 19, it kind of turned back into a buyer's market because we were really seeing a slowdown. And that kind of, you had a lot of companies looking around, had the industry looking around of, this could be a dramatic shift in the industry. And then the unknown, boom, COVID.
Well, the world changed then.
So everything that we knew changed then. Obviously, short-term rates, went lower than they have in the last 40 years. And it was an incredible time for production in the mortgage industry. The refinance market just absolutely exploded.
Right before this last interest rate hike, I locked in 2.65 for 30.
That's right. And you're part of the problem right now. You're never getting rid of that. No, you're never getting rid of that, right? So anyway, 2 years of just absolutely incredible production, and then what the world was going through.
Now, are we done with the problems of the 08, like credit default swaps and whatnot?
Oh, the CDOs and all that,
Yeah.
the credit. I mean, we're definitely done. That was a credit crunch. Okay, this is an economical crunch that we're coming up on. A credit crunch was because what we had was a bunch of bad loans rated AAA backed in these tranches, and we had a housing bubble that popped at the same time as a credit bubble popped. So
has the credit problem been addressed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The loans.
Is there accountability on the credit?
Man. There's no default problem with mortgage loans nowadays. It's the strongest underwriting that's ever taken place.
Because of that.
Because of that, we learned a great lesson, and that's why the two biggest, Fannie and Freddie, are still in conservatorship because they're still not trusted to do it on their own.
Well, and that goes to one of the things I really believe that's true or necessary about a good government or good governance is about transparency and accountability.
Absolutely.
And the credit companies had no accountability.
They had zero. All they knew is that they could not make enough money fast enough.
It also seemed like there was no set of individuals that was responsible. It was just the system. What
I heard is everybody just kept looking the other way because there was so much money to go around that people didn't want to stop.
If you don't have accountability, then you're going to have a crash of some sort.
I agree. And then, we could go into probably a longer even discussion on a free market economy and what truly a free market economy is.
You think a free market economy works well?
Not completely free. No.
I think
they're not bumpers there. You get yourselves into trouble just like that.
Yeah.
The big eat the small.
Do you think that, we have a republic or a democracy, that we can come up with our own social contracts in these spaces.
Yeah.
I still think that's better than authoritarian rule.
For sure.
But it is imperfect. But it's like Milton Friedman said, you think it's better somewhere else? Is there a better system out there?
There's not. And I've had that discussion with a lot of people on both sides of the political aisles that, is America perfect? No. I argued with somebody the other day when they were talking about it's not a progressive nation. I was like, it's not a progressive nation. Look what they've done in 300 years. My God. Define progressive if it's not progress. Right. That it is a progressive nation. Maybe not in the terms that you would like to define it in your short 5-year period, But my God, is there a more progressive nation that's ever been on earth?
Never.
I agree.
Well, take us back to, where do you see the mortgage industry in 10 years?
10 years. Okay. So anyway, we came out of COVID and we hit a point where, I think I talked to Armando about the last time. 40% of the printed currency in the U.S. was printed and interjected into our financial system in the last 24 months. It's a very scary number.
It's very scary.
Quantitative
Quantitative easing could be the end of us.
That's right. Right. So we've got 40% injected in the last 24 months. So we put that money in the hands of the American public. The first time this happened, 07, 08, 09, we put that money in the hands to bail out banks, to bail out lenders, or whatnot. This time we handed it to the American public and trusted them with it. And sometimes they don't make the best decisions, And so here we are at a point now where the stimulus money is starting to dry up. The Fed, seeing inflation obviously starting to absolutely explode with the cost of goods and services. I mean, you remember the supply shortages, and I mean, obviously when that happens, when there's a shortage of supply, the cost of everything goes up. I mean,
well, let me ask you this. So I know that the housing market is often an indicator of
tip of the spear.
Downturns in the economy or upticks. So are we in, or did we have a recession here in the last year or two?
I think we're in one.
But are people still buying and
People
selling?
have an appetite to buy, Craig, but they can't for two reasons. Number one, guys like you will never put your house on the market. You're not moving, okay? Number two, because you're not going to go trade, you could say, hey, look, honey, let's go upgrade. But you're not trading 2.625 for 7.
No.
You're not going to do that, right? No. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is simply the qualification. There's no inventory. So home builders are, you see Warren Buffett invested in 3 home builders yesterday. I mean, home builders with new homes are trying to gen them out as fast as they can, but it's an inventory crunch right now. The appetite to buy is certainly there, but the rate right now is hurting.
Well, if the appetite's there, is the ability also there?
No, not at 7.
Okay.
If we could get something with a 5 handle on it, you'd see a whole new world open up. Guys like you still that are in that house that want to upgrade will trade a 2.6 for a 5. And then these other people will come off the sidelines and they will buy. But at 7, it's tough. It's tough right now.
So are y'all still writing mortgages?
Still writing mortgages.
Really?
Yeah. It's just getting more creative than we ever have, and positioning ourselves for, we think, the next 6 to 8 months of this environment.
Now tell us, why is it that mortgage companies have a little more flexibility than banks?
Well, it depends on if they're set up as a true IMB or if they're a bank with a mortgage company. Okay. It really, as far as more flexibility, is the IMBs, they tend to be a little bit less regulated. But you also, they can disappear overnight, where a bank is going to have to answer to a board and answer to. So it depends on, what's fun in the short term may not be built to last. As a bank that is maybe going to be a little bit more conservative, but is going to, be there.
Right. Well, is there, what do you think about the digital currency front and mortgages? Is there any problem with, it doesn't matter how it gets paid as long as it's some currency that has value?
We're not there yet. I've been asked a lot about AI and how that's going to affect mortgages. And, there's a place for it. Will it fully take it over? No, because of the people in the southern states and other parts of the country that want government mortgages. They
want people.
Got to have people, man.
Yeah.
Got to have people. Yeah. And they have not been able to build a robot yet. Even millennials that want to do everything on their thumbs with their phone, this is the largest transaction of their life. They want an idea of who they're dealing with. They don't necessarily want to talk to you on the phone.
They want to know who they can call.
They want to know who they can call if something goes wrong, though.
Yeah.
That's right.
So are y'all seeing many defaults?
No. Default's not because the credit is on the books. Number one, it's at low interest rates, and was very strictly underwritten.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like the scrutiny on the front end is preventing that happening on the back end.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
The lack of scrutiny on the front end the first time caused exactly.
That won't happen again.
We've learned. Well, never say never, but we've learned that lesson. At least, it usually takes us a while to repeat a cycle like that.
So I don't know if you saw, but there's a hurricane approaching California.
Did see that.
Yeah.
Did see.
And my insurance rates went up here in Louisiana. And didn't really have anything big last year.
Yeah.
And that's home, auto, everything.
Oh yeah.
How does that affect the mortgage business?
I mean, it affects obviously a debt to income ratio. You know, if you got somebody that's tight and that the taxes are and the insurance has gotten to the point in Louisiana, especially where, I mean, that could kick them over a threshold of not qualifying for a mortgage. You know, tack that on top of a 7% interest rate, and yeah, it's made it more difficult for sure.
Well, especially people with fixed incomes. I mean,
That's right.
The rate hikes probably are greater than any inflationary adjustment to their income.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're just looking at paying a lot more. I mean, you talk to guys with like home equity lines of credit, and they were at 4%, you know, a year ago or a year and a half ago, and sitting at 9.25%. That's, I mean, you do the
Can you
math.
imagine in the 70s and 80s, the interest was up around like 20%? Isn't that crazy?
That was a weird time though too, because you had the failing of the savings and loans industry. You had oil just absolutely go kaput. You know, Houston, Baton Rouge, that whole part of the country was just devastated. I think that's why Houston, especially, you notice, and then I think Baton Rouge is trying. They diversified at that point. They said never again will a crash in one sector take us completely down, because it almost ruined Houston, Texas, man. Yeah,
they've come back.
They're doing just fine. I was there a couple days this week. Yeah.
So you travel a lot for your mortgage business?
I do. I get out and run around. I've got people kind of across the southeast through Texas, and that's my true love. I like to get out and go.
How are those intrastate with mortgages? Does it matter? You can get a mortgage from any state?
If you're with a bank now, you've got an exemption under the federal charter. If you are with a true IMB, you have to get specifically licensed in that state in order to lend.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not a problem because it happens.
I mean, yeah, it's not a problem. It's just got to be worth it. Like if you're going to do one loan in, you know, Georgia, you know, it may not be worth it. Do you go find somebody with the same company and you say, hey, I'm going to refer this to you? But I mean, if you find yourself doing a tranche of loans in Georgia, you go get licensed over there. But if you're with a bank that's not an issue. Yeah.
Seems like the bank is the more stable route, huh?
It always has been.
Yeah.
It always has been. IMBs, of course, though, present they present to you the fact of all we do is mortgages. That's all we do. You know, every decision's made off of a mortgage, but I mean, man, the mortgage industry can be fickle sometimes.
Right.
So you gotta be careful with that decision making as well.
Well, let's shift gears and tell me about your kids, wife, work-life balance. How's that going?
Man, I'll tell you what, it is. It's been fun. I've got a 17-year-old now, a 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and all of them involved in something. You know.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it is been running the roads. Lots. We did the travel baseball thing.
That'll wear you out.
Travel cheer thing. It's it can be a lot, but you know we try to get where we have at least one night a week where it's like, okay, I'm putting eyes on you. Everybody,
dinner around the dinner table.
Put your phones up.
Yeah.
You know, this is, you know, I know you don't like it, but you'll do it with your kids one day, and you'll explain to them why your dad did it to you.
We had a vacation recently, just a family, and the best part was probably had 18 meals around a dinner table for 2 or 3 hours.
Isn't that cool?
Phone stack. You got to stack your phone.
Stack your phone.
Just visit, and you know we probably won't do that again for 6 months or so.
That's right.
Just the way the kids are scattered.
Yeah.
So you got to make the most of those, and you know we had great families that we came from.
That's right.
But it's hard to see the decline there too.
Man, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting. I was in Houston, and this older gentleman walked in that is like a legend. Or, excuse me, I was in Dallas, and this guy walked in, Mr. Starkey. He's like a legend in the mortgage business, and lost his wife a few weeks ago. But he again, like we all know, this guy has been in the business for 60 years, has started run companies, and he was there to see me, and he came in and he talked for 45 minutes. And just kind of told stories and whatnot, and just kept going. And when he left, one of the execs is like, hey, I'm sorry. Just kind of goes on and on like that. I said, you know, man, I never mind that. I said, because one day he won't be there to tell those stories.
That's right.
That's how I see my dad, man. He calls on 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, and I'm jenning and I'm running.
Yeah.
But I know that you got to,
yeah.
and because one day that call won't come through anymore. Yeah.
Well, and I really believe that the best way to honor my parents is to carry on the values that they instilled to my children and to society the best way I can.
Absolutely.
It'll be imperfect,
sure,
but the best that we can.
Well, they were imperfect, you know, and you realize that, and their parents were imperfect.
That's right.
All we can do is take experiences and try to improve upon.
And you know, I don't know if you saw the movie Gleason, about Steve Gleason.
Yeah,
it's really good.
That's an awesome story.
And one of the things in there he said is this is how he was parenting. Take the good and improve on the bad.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell my kids. It's
Right.
like, I don't want you to do what I did.
Right.
But I want you to analyze it, take the good parts, but make the bad ones better, which is all of the genetic code, really.
I tell my kids that, we're going to take the good and then some of the bad. Dad might be picked up by social services.
In handcuffs.
We grew up in a different time.
No doubt.
Yeah. But I mean, they were doing the best they
Well,
could.
nowadays, I mean, we don't spank our children like we got spanked. But I think sometimes my children, and they're past that age, they would have preferred a spanking instead of take your phone.
Yeah,
They'd
right.
be like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'll keep my
just get
phone,
him
but
quick.
spank
Yeah,
me.
right. No, it's funny the things that we were just all laughing the other day talking about. Man, when we were in elementary school or whatever, somebody came to school, wearing Umbros or whatever, and legs were a little striped up. You're like, "What'd you do? Like, you got in trouble last night?" But
there was no hotline.
Today,
It'll be on Twitter,
right? Today you're on Twitter and you're probably in social services custody. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Just
probably
a different world.
Maybe for the better, but we don't know yet.
We don't know
We'll
yet.
find
That's
out.
right. It's all an experiment, right?
Yep. Well, what's next for you?
Man, it's an interesting time right now. It is kind of in a transition period with business. Like I said, we're setting ourselves up. It's a very cold period in our industry, but in these times, I've always found the greatest opportunity.
Well, it's true too that there's seasons in life, right?
Oh yeah, man.
And I read a book recently called Disrupt Yourself, and there's an S curve associated with change, and every 7 years there's a change in our life. I mean, physiologically and stuff too, 7, 14, 21, 28, but also, in my industry, maybe it's a new technique or a new a modification of an existing implant or a new technique, a new medicine.
Yeah.
But it involves changing the way you think or opening your mind to change.
Sure.
And a lot of people aren't good with that, you know.
No, change is difficult for a lot of people. But if you
it's necessary.
don't change, you begin to slowly erode and die. And
That's
so, you have to evolve. And if you don't, again, you limit yourself and your capabilities, and you will get passed by.
That's right.
You will get passed by.
That's right.
So you have to stay. That's great that you do that in your industry, and same here. And sometimes our S curve in my industry is that of just repeating itself.
Yeah.
But trying
With
to
minor modifications.
see the S curve sooner than you did the last time.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Be more prepared. Let your eyes be, experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
And the S curve might see you, but you don't see it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
Look for it more often.
Look for it more often. Yeah. Look not just 30 yards down the field, but 100.
The interesting about S curve is when you first start off, and we have the terminology wrong. Some people say, "Oh, it's a steep learning curve." It's a steep learning curve. You catch on very quickly.
Oh yeah,
that'll be great.
Yeah.
What you don't want is a very shallow learning curve.
Right.
So, in that S curve, you change, but nothing really. You don't see much in the way of effects from it right away.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you do see a lot, and then it flattens off. And at the end of that, you can do one of three things. You can either say, "I'm gonna go back to the way I was doing it."
Right.
You can just keep doing the same thing, and never embrace the next S curve.
Yeah.
Or it spins you into the next S curve.
Right. Right.
But I like what you said. You got to be looking out for those S curves.
You got to be looking and just try to catch it earlier, and
That's
then
right.
understand, like I said, not the beginning of it, but where it's going.
That's right.
Yeah. Prepare for that sooner, and you're starting to make progress.
Ride the wave.
Just ride the wave. So, Craig, just a question for you. I know you're involved in the state government now and whatnot, and I mean, obviously, being a private guy stepping into that, what are your thoughts there? I've got a couple of follow-ups as far as Louisiana business environment and able to attract industries going forward. Give me your
Well, let me back up and
Okay.
use the word involved, and I use this on my campaign trail. You have a plate of bacon and eggs, and you think, well, how did that get there?
Yeah.
It was a chicken and a pig.
Right.
Well, the chicken was involved, but the pig was committed.
Yeah, that's right.
And if once you cross over the line to run for office, you're committed.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do. I wish everybody would do it. None of us have all the answers. I think the best way to govern is to don't claim to have the answers, but I'm going to ask a million questions that are iterative, so that we can always get to a more sharper answer for the future. But that involves also saying, hey, what did we learn from the last decision we made? One of my favorite things I've heard recently is anything that happens to you as a person or as a member of society, if you can say, what does that reveal about me, and what's my next move on the chessboard?
Yeah.
And that's hard in politics because people are so interested in their record or how it looks.
Right.
But if we can break it down to its substance, it'd be way better.
Gotcha. The follow-up to that is that, when you look at some of the contiguous states, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama's not contiguous, but Arkansas, it seems like they are growing in ways that Louisiana's maybe lagging behind a little bit. Some of these towns, Huntsville, Alabama, Tupelo, Mississippi, I mean, just all of these, Nissan's coming there, Toyota's coming there, Boeing's coming there. What is stopping us from doing something like that?
Well, I think it's a complex question. I'm still trying to answer that myself, but I'm under the belief that we can make it better by asking those questions. Like, to look at all the states that we deem sort of like us, to say, what are they doing that we're not, and how is it working, and what could our version of that be? A lot of people get upset when we say you can't just cut and paste from Texas, and I get that.
No, right.
But to look and say, okay, do they have laws that have given them a leg up when it comes to recruiting new plants or businesses or anything, talent?
Right.
There's a lot of people that, would you come to Baton Rouge if the roads and the schools aren't good? I mean, I think that matters.
I agree.
And so I think we have to start very fundamentally and ask the hard questions about what do those states have or those towns have. Like, look at Raleigh, North Carolina. It used to be a tobacco town.
Right.
Now it's a tech town.
Right.
So they pivoted.
Right.
And I think for Louisiana, we're going to have to answer hard questions about what is our pivot going to be.
Gotcha.
And what could it be? What are the options? But fundamentally, you need roads, schools, and clean water and power.
Agreed.
And then you build on that. And I think we're trying to do that with the tax structure. There's a modern tax structure that I think could make us competitive. Think about Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge and Austin have always kind of paralleled one another as state capitals, flagship university.
Sure.
There's a lot of energy, and so if we can take that energy and just modernize it for society, I think it would be amazing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. No, I've always heard that if LSU, with the talent that it comes to that university, could actually stay after graduation and not, peel off other places, even that would help greatly.
Well, and what we have to do is, I think government should be the environment that, not telling businesses what to do, but the environment whereby businesses can come here and thrive, meaning their employees and everything that goes along with that.
Gotcha. Give them an opportunity for a lifestyle that would be conducive to them moving here and working here.
And I really believe in something called the central limit theorem, which is a linear regression to the mean. And so, let's say we're 50th in this and 49th in that. Let's just try to get to 25th first.
Hey, yeah. Right.
And then we'll get in the top 5.
That's right. Yeah, progress.
But it's like, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Just, if we could start mapping out what's the pathway towards better.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a switch to flip. And people like myself will campaign and say, vote for me. I don't think there's one politician that can drastically change this in a short period of time.
Right.
But you have to have vision for it.
Sure.
And then buy-in from those around you in the community.
Right.
And there's still a risk, well, is that going to work?
Yeah.
And I think if we do our homework on the front end and see what changes need to be made, there's a high likelihood it'll be successful.
That's awesome. I just, everybody being a native, from here like you are, I am, we would love to see Baton Rouge be that city that can still grow and still.
And I think the way that'll happen is a gradual and iterative movement.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this dramatic overnight thing that's going to be
no swoop of the pen is going to fix it all.
No.
Gotcha.
But that takes resolve.
Yeah, it does. It takes good leadership with vision.
Yeah.
For sure, man.
Well, let's keep moving forward.
That's it.
Thanks for being here.
All right, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to this surgical exploration of politics, healthcare, and life. I've been your host, Dr. Craig Green. Remember to stay informed, stay sharp, and join us next time to see which of life's topics we'll dissect under the knife.